The FBI foils a New Year's Eve terror plot orchestrated by a radical leftist group. Warner Brothers urges shareholders to stick with Netflix's takeover offer, despite a tempting bid from Paramount Skydance. Secretary of Education Linda McMahon issues a letter to Minnesota Governor Tim Walz outlining how scammers have stolen millions in student loans and education grants in his state. And the Department of Health and Human Services cuts federal funding for any hospital performing sex change surgeries or prescribing hormone blockers to children. We'll get into all that and your quick hits now. What's up, guys? Welcome to the wrap-up, where we break down the biggest stories of the week that you might have missed but need to know. I'm your host, Casey. 4 left-wing extremists accused of planning coordinated New Year's Eve bomb attacks on Southern California businesses were charged in federal court after authorities stopped an alleged explosive test in the Mojave Desert. Federal agents stated that the group took tangible steps towards carrying out the plot, which involved obtaining explosive precursors, PVC pipes, fuses, and other materials used for making bombs. Authorities in Louisiana arrested a 5th suspect accused of stockpiling and transporting firearms and body armor. Prosecutors allege the suspects are connected to the Turtle Island Liberation Front. This extremist group, similar to Antifa, is anti-capitalist and anti-government, but supports pro-Palestine causes. They promote, quote, direct action to target businesses, institutions, and law enforcement. A recent social media post from the group reads, "Peaceful protests will never be enough. We are up against fascist colonizers. We cannot vote ourselves out of a mass colonizer occupation." The Daily Wire reported that investigators uncovered discussions about potential future attacks beyond New Year's Eve, including plans to target immigration and customs enforcement agents and vehicles early next year. The defendants are set to be arraigned in early January 2026. Next up, Warner Brothers is advising shareholders to refuse a takeover offer from Paramount Skydance, claiming that a competing bid from Netflix would benefit customers more. In a letter to its shareholders, the company said, quote, "The WBD board urges you to reject Paramount Skydance's unsolicited, inferior, and illusory tender offer. Unlike Paramount's bid, Netflix's offer does not include Warner Brothers' cable operations. If approved, Netflix's acquisition will finalize after Warner's cable separation." AP reported that Paramount's offer includes $18 billion more in cash. Paramount stated it made 6 different bids, which Warner's leadership rejected before the company announced its deal with Netflix on December 5th. Only after that did Paramount present its offer directly to Warner's shareholders. While Wednesday's letter shows that Warner Brothers' board prefers Netflix's offer, shareholders can still choose to accept Paramount's bid for the entire company, including CNN and Discovery. Critics of the Netflix deal warned that the partnership would give them overwhelming market dominance. U.S. President Donald Trump has been vocal about the potential deal and the regulatory approval process. He previously said that Netflix's deal, quote, could be a problem due to potential outsized market control. In our next story, Education Secretary Linda McMahon sent a letter to Minnesota Governor Tim Walz detailing how fraudsters in his state have stolen $12.5 million in student loan and education grant funds. The letter details how a new fraud prevention system at the department has identified over $1 billion in, quote, attempted financial aid theft, including instances involving international fraud rings and AI bots. McMahon called fraudsters ghost students because they weren't ID verified, often not in the US, or didn't even exist, with 1,834 ghost students in Minnesota receiving $12.5 million in taxpayer grants and loans. McMahon said, quote, "Scammers have gotten rich off federal housing, education, food stamp, and small business programs, even defrauding assistance for elder care and autistic children." The letter comes after Somalis in Minnesota in particular have been exposed as having massively defrauded American taxpayers, even reportedly funding terrorists back in their country. In June, the Department of Education announced a nationwide effort to eliminate identity theft and fraud in federal student aid programs for the fall of 2025 semester. This initiative follows the previous White House administration's removal of student loan verification and redirection of resources from fraud prevention to illegal loan forgiveness, which drastically increased the risk of fraud. The DOE also implemented a common-sense safeguard that required first-time student aid applicants to present in person or via live video a valid, unexpired government-issued photo ID to an authorized institution staff member, who must keep a copy. Up next, the Department of Health and Human Services announced that any hospitals performing sex changes on children, including pharmaceutical or surgical interventions, will be considered ineligible for Medicaid or Medicare programs. And the HHS is also removing gender dysphoria from the Biden-era list of disabilities to reassure HHS funding recipients that policies restricting sex-rejecting procedures do not violate Section 504 disability non-discrimination rules. HHS Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. signed a peer-reviewed declaration on Thursday stating, quote, "The American Medical Association peddled the lie that chemical and surgical sex-rejecting procedures could be good for children who suffer from gender dysphoria. This is not medicine. It is malpractice. We're done with junk science driven by ideological pursuits, not the well-being of children." The Post-Millennial reported that in addition to this, the USDA has warned retailers selling breast binders for girls, which diminish lung function and cause long-term problems. These binders are intended for cancer patients after mastectomy, not for young girls. And earlier this week, the House approved the Protect Children's Innocence Act, which, if enacted into law, would make it a federal crime to perform sex change surgeries and prescribe puberty blockers to minors. And now it's time for Quick Hits. CBP officers in the Lone Star State discovered a tractor trailer filled with cereal ingredients. Innocent enough. Except upon further inspection, they discovered $10.3 million in alleged methamphetamine hidden inside the cereal bags. After just one season, Netflix has canceled the LGBTQ-themed military series Boots, which the Pentagon had previously labeled woke garbage. President Donald Trump announced that more than 1 million U.S. military service members will receive a $1,776 bonus before Christmas, citing the success of tariffs and an increase in military recruitment. The UK Thought Police are at it again, this time charging a woman for silent prayer outside of an abortion clinic. Having been cleared of 2 prior charges for praying in a public space, Isabel Von Spruce is now facing a 3rd charge, this time for violating a buffer zones law that went into effect last year. 2 men from Massachusetts have been arrested and charged in a scheme to fraudulently acquire millions in SNAP benefits through small convenience stores. They allegedly redeemed between $100,000 and $500,000 in benefits each month, surpassing the amounts redeemed by supermarkets, and even sold donated food intended for children overseas. After a viral video showed a Target employee named Jeannie being berated and cursed at by a woke customer for wearing a Freedom Charlie Kirk shirt, Gateway Pundit reporter Cassandra McDonald organized a fundraiser for the employee, raising more than $200,000. You know what, Jeannie? Have yourself a nice vacation. That's a wrap for this week. Make sure to like, subscribe, and leave a comment telling us what you thought about these stories. And we'll see you back here next week on The Wrap Up. Thank you so much for watching this video. In order to keep PragerU videos free, please consider making a tax-deductible donation today.